President Selby Mbenenge faces a misconduct investigation by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. And the matter that arises, this particular matter rather arises out of a sexual harassment complaint that's been laid against him by Judge's Secretary Andiswa Mengo, who works for another judge also in the Eastern Cape. If found guilty, it could lead to his impeachment. The complainant has already allegedly suffered threats that have reportedly forced her to flee the Eastern Cape. But it raises criticisms about how complaints of this kind are dealt with in those judicial circles. And we'll delve into that one now with the head of Judges Matter, Alison Tilley. Alison, good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time on the program this morning. It's quite a serious and a sensitive case. So I want to begin with an overview, because you say sexual harassment is a big taboo in the legal profession and in the judiciary. Why?
Well, I think it's, excuse me, I think it's for the same reason that it's a difficult matter to deal with everywhere, is that sexual harassment is often a function of more powerful people harassing more junior people, people with less power. And I think what then happens is that the difficulty is then trying to lay a complaint or act against somebody who really is much more powerful than you, and it becomes difficult to take the matter forward. In speaking to some women in the legal profession recently, we were told that it's to lay such a complaint can be career-ending. So I think we have to take seriously the question of whether, you know, of just how difficult it is to actually raise concerns around sexual harassment.
Which reinforces silence, again, which becomes another issue. So you lose the opportunity not only to have your matters ventilated, you lose the opportunity for solidarity, and you lose the opportunity to create permission for others who might also be affected to speak out. Alison, we can't prejudge the matter as it relates to Judge Mbenenge, but you do have a real problem with the fact that the JSC is not recommending that the president suspend Mbenenge pending the outcomes of the tribunal investigation. He is on special leave, and that's been given as, you know, as a reason for why that hasn't happened. But how significant is this?
Well, I think the question that we've raised, and it's a simple one. I mean, obviously, the judge president concerned has not been found guilty of anything. And the question is whether one should have a precautionary suspension, something that happens in many workplaces. Judges are different. You don't want to infringe on the independence of the judiciary. But at the same time, what we do know is that when the Judicial Conduct Tribunals say that the matter is serious and that, you know, well, when a Judicial Conduct Tribunal is going to happen in relation to somebody, it has been the practice for this request to go to the president to suspend the person. So I think we are really asking the question is, why is this case being treated differently? And it seems to us we can't see that there's a basis for differentiating here, and we think the same procedure should be followed, which is a suspension rather than special leave.
Have you received any answers? I mean, have these questions been put either to the tribunal or to the JSC, and how have they responded?
Well, we've certainly written to them, and you know, their answer is that he is indeed on special leave, so he's not in the court and he's not acting as the judge president. Our answer is, well, yes, true, but at the same time, special leave doesn't mean that he can't come back to the court. He can't, you know, be in his chambers. He can't be interacting with the staff in the court, and that doesn't seem right. So our, you know, our view is that a suspension is appropriate, and at this stage he will remain on special leave until the matter is heard, and it it would appear that a suspension is not on the cards.
What are some of the risks you're concerned about then, Alison, if, as you say, there is a difference operationally between leave and suspension?
Well, I think the main thing that we're interested in is this question about what happens in the workplace when there is somebody who, and it not just sexual harassment, but many other disciplinary matters where you say, should the person still be coming to work? And in some instances, the answer is no. They really do need to be kept away from the workplace until such time as the matter's been resolved. And we think this is certainly one of those circumstances.
Alison, we're talking about someone with a formidable career in law and someone who's acted in several high-profile cases. For the benefit of our viewers, I'll mention a few. He chaired the disciplinary hearing of Senior Prosecutor Glenys Breitenbach in 2012. That same year, representing the Constitutional Court Justices Besin Kabinde and Chris Jafta at the JSC proceedings over these allegations of attempted improper influencing of judges. This was the matter related to then Western Cape Judge President John Klophe. But he's also credited with driving transformation in the Eastern Cape High Court Division. The complainant is a judge's secretary who works in the same building. And these charges are pretty grave that she's leveled against him. Tell us a bit more about the complaint. And you started talking about the power dynamic in the beginning, but maybe deeper into into the issue of their positions, and how, in terms of power, how relevant it is to how the complaint is viewed and how it will ultimately be adjudicated upon.
Well, I think this is something that we've been looking at in relation to the policy issues. Courts are complicated beasts. They have many different role players who are in the court building, and they're not all managed by the same sort of hierarchy. So if you think about your average courtroom, you've got your magistrate who will fall under the judicial system. You'd have police, you have the prosecutor, you have the defense lawyer, you have, the people in the courtroom as witnesses. So it's a very complex system, and what ends up happening is that you will have people who are under, let's say, in a case like this, where you are actually employed by the Office of the Chief Justice, and then you're working for somebody as, let's say, as a judge, and the question then becomes, well, who do you complain to, if something is happening, and what policy applies? And I think that's one of the things that we're asking about as well, which policy applies, and where do you report?
Yeah.
Is it always to the JSC? Well, it shouldn't be, because sometimes it won't be a judge. It'll be somebody else in the court building. And one of the things that we're asking about is, well, how do we bring all of those role players together and put them in a position where we say, and particularly for these often younger, vulnerable women and people, not only women, is there somewhere where they can go, which is a comfortable space to report to, which isn't, for example, having to report something to the Judicial Services Commission, which is obviously quite an intimidating and difficult thing to do.
I mean, I think it's really, really important, that last point, that it seems to be very institutionalized, the hierarchy of reporting, or being able to sort of raise your hand in a sensitive matter. As you say, it's not an environment, like many corporate environments even, that's conducive to handling complaints of this kind. It beggars belief that such a place does not exist, a landing place for where people can feel safe to be able to do this. And what you're also asking for is some urgency around the development or the adoption by the judiciary of a comprehensive anti-sexual harassment policy that is intolerant of all forms of sexual abuses. What types of actions do you have in mind, and how do you see it, besides, as you say, creating the sort of middle place where people can go and have their complaints dealt with in a sensitive way? How else and what actions could empower and safeguard complainants?
Well, I think one of the things that we have been doing as Judges Matter is making a helpline available for people who are traumatized, who need counseling. That unfortunately is going to have to come to an end. We don't have the funding to keep running it. But I think the other thing that we're looking at is these policies. So looking at a policy in the JSC itself. So what do they do when people and particularly candidates have reported cases of sexual harassment against them? You know, what will they do? And then this question of how do we bring everybody together to find a reporting space. I think the other steps that we're really looking at is trying to find people within the profession, and there are women who work in the profession who are willing to step up as people who can, you can go to and ask questions and tell your story, and they'll be able to really listen with a sympathetic ear, but also be aware of the referral networks that are available. So I think there are a couple of ideas in play as to how we can do this better. And I guess that's certainly progress of a kind, and that's what we'll be continuing to work towards.
Just in closing, Alison, you're suggesting that there is this culture of silence already. And two things I want to ask is, how endemic is sexual harassment in the judicial and legal circles? And what is your awareness on how many cases that have been raised actually come to fruition with the suspension of the higher-ups? Or even the disbarring, or the derobing or disrobing, I'm not sure what the correct term might be, of those who are found to have been culpable.
Well, I think we have two matters that we are aware of with Magistrate Nzimande and Magistrate Hinkler out of KZN and the Free State respectively. And they have been suspended, and they were correctly suspended, as although I shouldn't say that in relation to Magistrate Nzimande, because his matter is still ongoing. So we do know of examples, and we do know that they do take a very long time to resolve, which is a problem. The problem of sexual harassment in the sort of legal space is very concerning. It really does seem to be a very serious problem. The magistrate, people are always shocked when you say that magistrates are sexually harassed themselves, because people think, well, women lawyers, women magistrates, surely they're too powerful, they know their rights. But I think we have to understand that there are women and people like anybody else in a system, and they too are subject to harassment. And I think particularly younger women lawyers find it really, really challenging. They really do experience it in many of the spaces that they work in. So we are certainly, the more we talk to people about it, the more concerned we are. And as I say, particularly about young women lawyers and the kinds of difficulties that they have just trying to get the job done.
Alison Tilley, thank you for talking to us this morning. We appreciate your time. Alison Tilley is the head of Judges Matter. We've got more news coming up.